Hello and welcome to English 332, or Introduction to Writing in the Professions. I'm Dr. Matt Barton. I'll be your professor this semester. And in this lecture, I just want to introduce some basic concepts, give you a general overview of the course. And I want to start with the textbook. This is A Successful Writing at Work by Philip C. Collin. Now, you don't need the print copy of this. It's quite expensive, actually. So if you don't have it already, don't worry about it. The whole book is available in an e-format directly from the website at a Cengage Mind tab. I'll put a link to that in the announcements, and it's on the Canvas site as well in the syllabus. All the information from that print book is there, so I don't see any reason for you to have basically two versions of this. I would just buy the electronic subscription for $50 and you're good. So if you already have a print copy, if you just prefer a print, that's fine. Otherwise, I would advise returning that and just using the ebook form as part of your MindTap subscription. So if you have any questions about that, just let me know. You can email me or go to the website. Anyway, let's just jump right into the topic here. What kind of writing are we talking about in this course? What will we be doing, looking at? What are we concerned about? How is it different than a traditional writing course, something like English 191 or a literature course, something like that? The main thing is the genres that we're working with. And also the emphasis, the way information is presented, the emphasis on design, the look, feel of a document, as well as the content. And here's just some quick examples, very common examples. Top left, we've got a bar graph. You see those all over the place, right? But there's quite a bit of learning that you need to be able to create those efficiently, to make them accurate, not to misrepresent the information. But really, these sorts of graphs and like this are designed to make the information easier to process. A lot of us can sort of learn visually better than we can just through text form. So that's why you see so many of these, and we'll be talking about how to make those in this course. Over there on the right, we have one of my favorite Minnesotan products, the can of Spam, but specifically the nutrition facts on the side of the can. You see all this stuff in there about how much fat is in it, fiber, the calories, all this very important information for anyone interested in health. And a lot of work went into the design of that label. There's a reason that certain words are bigger and certain things are bolded and certain margins are used and indentations are used. It's a very scientific process. It's actually quite fascinating. But the goal, of course, is to make it very clear what information there is relevant, how to help you get to that information quickly, efficiently, not being confused by the label. So all of these factors were part of that design. And then, of course, we have the Boy Scouts of America handbook there. You might have the Girl Scouts of America handbook. Those are great. Lots of very visual pages in there about how to tie knots and so on. Very important information that can literally mean the difference between life and death in some cases, right? But also, I think, a lot of fun to learn that way. Over in the lower right, we have the dreaded assembly instructions you might have seen if you've ever put together a coffee table or pretty much any piece of furniture. Sometimes these can be very confusing. Sometimes you don't turn to these documents until you've tried your best to do it on your own and you've really made a mess of it. So in sort of desperation, you turn to these instructions and finally figure out how to do it. Nevertheless, so these can be done well or they can be done poorly. Hopefully in this course, we'll learn how to do them well. Here's an example of a poorly done set of instructions or guides, I guess. And this is warnings. I mean, this is very crucial information. You could actually kill yourself with these. I think this is a paint gun we're looking at here, paint gun instructions. But they're trying to give you basic instructions like don't point it at anybody, even if the thing is empty. Don't joke around with it. So it's very, useful information you want everybody who buys one of these things to know. But if you look closely here, you'll notice that the wording of these sentences is kind of off. The grammar, the mechanics, it's incorrect, basically. And even though you can sort of figure out what it is they mean from looking at the pictures, I think you would agree with me, right, that not having edited this very well, not proofreading it, gives a sort of poor impression of the company to put this out. And you might start to wonder about the quality of the item. I mean, there's a lot of negative stuff that arises that could have easily been prevented just if they had run this past an editor or two. So my point here is basically that not being a good writer or not having good English skills, it can put you not only you, but your company at a disadvantage. People will think less of your company, think you're not as professional or as serious or as reliable as you want them to think, just because of little issues like this. So, again, you think of writing, grammar, mechanics, you think, well, who cares about that other than an English teacher? Well, really, you care about it. It affects your perception of a company or a business or politician or anybody. Okay, moving on to technical and professional communication, or TPC, it's commonly abbreviated. This is a communication about complex, highly detailed problems, issues, or subjects in the professional world, which helps audiences visualize and understand information so they can make informed and ethical decisions or take appropriate and safe actions. So there's a lot of parts to this definition, but I've bolded a few pieces that I think are crucial. One is the visualizing aspect. So you'll see a lot more graphs, a lot more illustrations, a lot more use of a video and so on in this type of writing that you would in, say, an essay about Shakespeare. You probably wouldn't have too many graphs or pictures in there, but you would in the manual about how to put together an airplane. Let's see what else we have there. Informed decisions, right? So a lot of times let's say you're trying to decide which car to buy. It's helpful to have all of that information that you need very clearly laid out so you can get to it quickly, make comparisons. You might choose one car over another just because you couldn't ever figure out this other car's gas mileage, let's say, or whether it has a certain safety feature you're looking for. You just weren't well informed, so you went with this other one, even though maybe that car actually was better in those regards. Ethical decisions are another really crucial thing. You might be asked as a technical writer or just somebody putting together documents in the workplace to sort of fudge some data, maybe, or de-emphasize something that you don't want the audience to know about, or maybe just flat out lie, make an unethical decision. For example, Volkswagen, you might have heard about this scandal. They sort of made their cars look more green or eco-friendly than they were on certain, I think, diesel engines. Anyway, that came back to bite them. And it was really because it was an unethical decision. They knew better. They knew the information wasn't accurate, but they put it out there anyway. Now, there might have been, or should have been, writers that were working on these documents that said, hold on, wait a minute, we're not going to do this. This is not right. But they failed to do so. So one of the things we want to keep in mind in a course like this is that, yeah, sometimes you'll be in a situation where you'll have to do the right thing, even if it means getting into some trouble with your boss, your manager. It's not worth it, though, ultimately, to engage in unethical behavior like that. And, of course, safety is always a key thing. Again, coming back to my Shakespeare essay, it's probably not going to kill somebody or get somebody killed if you are confusing in certain parts of that essay, right? It's not a life or death scenario. Whereas if it's that manual we were looking at for the pellet gun or the paintball gun, yeah, if you're confusing, if the reader doesn't understand what it is you're trying to get across, you could actually get injured. That person could be injured or injure somebody else. So this can be really important stuff, more than just writing for elegance or writing for just because you enjoy it. It's writing with the safety in mind. Now, a workplace writer, this term comes up a lot too. Now, if you do a Google search or a Monster.com search, you might not find a lot of jobs using this as a label. But nevertheless, good writing skills will come in handy in a variety of ways. And I got some 4 examples here of broad categories of workplace writing. There's the single document that will be used for a diverse audience. So that could be anything from a memo that's going out to all layers of a company, for example. So even though managers will be looking at it, engineers, technicians, maybe even clients, they'll all be looking at this same document. It has to serve a sort of one size fits all. That's one scenario. 2 is explaining some kind of complex problem to an uninformed audience. And this problem comes up all the time at science and any kind of technological job. You might be working with a very complicated set of problems. let's say around databases or engines or the climate, let's say. And nevertheless, you have to communicate this sort of very expert level information and have to, I don't want to say dumb it down, right? But put it in words that are metaphors or whatever, so that this uninformed audience, this audience that doesn't know, doesn't have your expertise, doesn't need it, right? Because that's why you got the job, because you have the expertise. But maybe they need to know it in order to vote the right way, or maybe to buy the right product. Who knows? But this is a very great skill to have. And unfortunately, it's not something a lot of academics are good at, right? Are good at sort of breaking this complex problem into simple language. I think that's I call that a very intellectual skill to have, because you have to know this expert level stuff on a level even beyond the experts sometimes. 3, serving as a bridge between two groups within a company. So this could be administrators and faculty here at the university. Could be managers and engineers, who knows, or artists or designers and content producers or writers. It could be even, think about it, making a movie, how you have producers and the crew and the actors. There's a very different groups. Nevertheless, somebody has to be the go-between person. And then 4th, finding ways to make communication more efficient and effective between businesses and clients. Again, this is probably what you mostly think about with a course like this, putting out advertisements or brochures, informational pamphlets, all sorts of, or websites, all sorts of ways a company has to communicate with clients. If they do it well, it makes a good impression, can win business. If they do it poorly, again, gives a bad impression, they might lose business. Now, here's some examples of genres. Emails and memos, obviously. You can think about a memo basically as a print version of an email. It's very similar. Technical definitions, wikis, websites, manuals, proposals, reports, presentations, videos. All of these come up all the time, and we'll be working with most of these in this course. Future technology, this is something I always love thinking about. We've got all this virtual reality stuff coming out. Augmented reality. I mean, we really don't know what workplace writing will look like in 10, 20 years. But I think it's worth thinking about, because you can start preparing yourself for this. As long as you're on that cutting edge, you'll be well poised for promotions. So with that in mind, let's just stop for a minute and think about this question. So obviously businesses had to use print-based stuff, memos, business letters. Everything was basically printed out. Now, of course, emails, increasingly mobile phones, texting. Businesses are changing the way they communicate. It's happening very quickly, and it's leaving a lot of people in the lurch. So let's just think about this question for a minute. So how do you think the move from memos to emails and beyond has affected both small and large business? So just take a minute to ponder that and let me know what you think. All right, so moving on, again, some general information about the course and TPC. And we've already talked about some of these differences. The purposes are often quite different than an academic class. You might be writing a document to advertise your product. That probably wouldn't come up in too many literature classes, right? But it's very common in TPC. Again, audiences, these can vary from laypersons, maybe clients, with varying levels of technical knowledge, as well as maybe they don't know maybe they don't know English at all. Nevertheless, you have to communicate with them. That's going to be challenging in lots of ways. Again, design, the look of a document, formatting, whether it goes out on a glossy paper, or common paper, newsprint, how big the document's going to be. How rugged does it need to be? Is it going to be used in the field? And there's all sorts of questions that come up that are often just as important as the actual content of the document. The type of research that's involved will be different. You might be looking at a lot of the same databases that you're using in your other classes, but now they'll be turned to business communication. A lot of this, let's say the Science Direct database, I use that quite often. and writing about technical subjects. Even a lot of students use it. A lot of professionals use it too. Technology, again, we've already talked about websites and texting. All of these things are crucial, not just to know how to use them for your own needs, but how to use them in a business context. Often gets a lot of students into trouble when they're not aware of this, or they don't think before they send a text with lots of text speak in it to a manager. You could imagine what can happen. And then the honesty, again, it's easy to use rhetoric or persuasive language to mislead people, but again, ultimately, this comes back to bite you. I can't think of very many situations where you're not better off without that classic advice of honesty being the best policy. If you know that this product has a defect and you try to cover up that defect, ultimately, you'll probably be worse off than if you were just upfront about it. There's countless examples of this happening. All right, so I've mentioned design a few times. So let's have some fun now. So let's consider how design, so we're thinking here about everything from font selection to colors to placement of text on the screen, use of images, the types of images, all of this stuff. How can all that affect the clarity, persuasiveness, branding, and even the sincerity of a message? So let's take a look here. This is a web page from Apple, who, by the way, Apple is well known, well respected for their designers. A lot of their documentation, very well designed. They win lots of awards for it, so it's worth looking at. So let's just take a look here at this page. See if you can figure out what is sort of being emphasized here. What's the focus? Where does your eye go first when you look at this? How do you navigate this page? What else do you see here? What about white space or just blank parts of the page? Should there be more text in this on this website than there is? So just think about all these issues and let me know what you think. What would you say is the design of this page? Is it effective? Is it not effective? Why or why not? All right, so let's wrap this up. I got 4 points here I want you to ponder over the next, 15, 16 weeks of the course. One is that nearly all professions involve reading and writing, and the good writing skills are always helpful. So again, legal career, medical career, political career, some type of scientific career, engineering, you name it. There's probably quite a lot more reading and writing involved than you're aware of at this point. But that can be good news because if you can read well and write well, that's a huge advantage for just about any profession. I hear from people all the time that say exactly this point. Yeah, Dr. Barton, you were right. Here I am, a police officer, and I'm having to write all of these reports all the time. And you know what? If I don't write well, if something's inaccurate or incorrect, that can actually lose in court because of this grammar error or just unclear language. So thank you for your course. 2, workplace writing differs from academic writing in many important ways. So I guess it's kind of good news. If you're not so good at writing essays in other classes, maybe you'll be good at this kind of writing. Conversely, though, just because you're really good at writing essays doesn't necessarily mean you're going to be great at writing instructions. There's a different set of skills, very similar in many ways, but you'll have to adapt. So again, just because you make A's in other English classes doesn't mean you'll make an A in this class. I hope you will, but there'll be some transitioning, let's say, that we'll have to make. 3 is that the design or the look of a document can often be just as important as the actual content of that document. You can have some very well-written instructions, but if it's presented in a poor way, the font's too small, it's jammed together, there are no pictures, there's no effort at polishing it to make it look nice, people might just chuck that and not even look at it, right? In that case, I would say the design was another failure because it wasn't interesting enough or wasn't polished enough for them to take it seriously. So that could be a big issue. And we'll see this at the first project, really, with the resumes. You think about the way that resume looks on the page. If it looks bad, it doesn't really matter what the text is because they'll just throw it out, assume you didn't put any effort into it. Whereas if it looks nice, that can even compensate for some lack in certain areas, right? They say, well, this person obviously put a lot of effort into making this resume look professional, and that means something. And 4, electronic communication is critical. We've said email, but of course, texting, websites, mobile devices, even augmented reality, all of this stuff is crucial, but that doesn't mean that traditional writing skills aren't valuable. Actually, it's quite the opposite. Traditional writing skills are still very valuable in just about any workplace, down to the old, writing a sentence and not having a comma splice, even something that basic can still set you ahead of the competition. Good editing, proofreading skills, knowledge of usage, English usage and grammar, all crucial stuff. They'll all give you a huge advantage just about every profession, even in the face of all this electronic media. So I hope you enjoyed this. I'm happy to answer any questions you have about the course, type of projects we'll be doing. You name it, just let me know. And by the way, from time to time, I like to end these videos with just an open question. If you have any points you'd like to make, please put something in there, even if it's just thanks, or I don't have any questions, or bye. If you leave it blank, though, it might show up as a missing question when I go to grade these assignments. So again, just anything in the blank is fine, but don't leave it blank. Anyway, I hope you're having a great day, and talk to you next time.